Weeks have passed since I last spoke with you, and in that time I have left the lower elevations where summer was closer than spring was behind, into the higher elevations where the beginnings of spring is showing its colors and pollens. We have had beautiful days all around us, but less so inside the steel metal box I chose to make my home so many years ago. I did so in preparing for the times we are now facing of weather extremes and security concerns. I chose steel to protect me, heavy and strong against both wind, storms, hail, and intruders. But it's been more than 12 years preparing for a life that began as searching for a tribe and a new way of living close to the earth and building a new way to move forward. I left naive and full of hope and wonder, believing somewhere out there I would find a way to live and a place to call home that would bless us all as we created a new world. But that person is gone now. Looking back at the life I spent more than a decade preparing for, training for, learning about, and gathering all the skills and tools to survive it, I can no longer sustain it, physically, mentally, or emotionally. And I find after 50 years that I began the original quest to seek, the only mission I ever held on to, the pursuit of truth. All I have left is that singular discovery and one last journey. And so I find myself ending much the way all this began, not with an answer or a destination, but with a question, because everything else has changed, including any hope for a future I once held, that a world would be more blessing than curse. I have nothing left within me to fight for the old world and its ways. I don't survive what's coming. I am not part of building what is next. And I can't live this life endlessly preparing for the kind of survival we are soon to be faced with. And so I am here, asking yet another simple question. I can't get what I want from this body or this world. So now, what do I do? And the only answer I can find is that my life must be about more than just survival. To move beyond it, to stay sane, and to be grateful that lying within me is another journey. Not one of answers, survival, prepping, being right, fighting against, or any of the million efforts I've experienced in my 6 decades on Earth, but to remember how it all began as a very young girl who asked, "What is the truth?" and then began writing everything that happened next down. Answers never solved anything for very long. Questions soon became my better friends, and truth, it just waited for me to make the very long trek to it. And my journals, They saved my life, and they've carried me forward to this moment in which I have little strength, less energy, and terrible focus. But I can carry one question, one pen, and one journal forward on this final journey that is mine alone to make. That is my sacred duty. Well, that and these two damn dogs who are making me crazy, but I love them. Better at all. So I'm going to walk away from my fear. I'm going to walk away from who I was. I'm going to walk away from this because I'm out of electricity and gas. But I'm not going to walk away from life itself. That I am not. And with that, we've got one more thing to do.
I've learned much about you. You think our ways are harsh. That's how we survive. Maybe life should be about more than just surviving.
Well, it's been a while, kind of. I don't even know. I've lost all track of time. But I thought it would be time to check in. There they go. It's been like a crying wolf situation. 99% of the time, nothing is there. And then I always ask, but what if it's that one time? Which really leads me to one of the things I wanted to cover in this video. And that, like you saw in the title, is it just me? Or is life just intensely more frustrating than it ever used to be? And I feel like all I do is hit my head against the wall, and I'm getting more and more frustrated. And I don't like the way that feels. In addition to the fact that everything I've tried to do just is really just me hitting walls. And so, as I told the people who listen to the podcast, maybe it's time I started asking different questions, because that has always been the core component to my life, is to ask questions and then to journal, and ask questions and then to journal. And I've, taken such a crazy long journey with you online. I've taken a crazy journey in my life, and it was always with the best intentions, right? I just wanted to help people. And it just doesn't work, because what I've learned in these processes, nobody asks me questions, and there must be a reason for that, right? And so I have been doing a lot of thinking and a lot of where do I go from here, and having to make some difficult decisions, because, I really left with one dream, as I talked about in the intro, and then I've just been hitting my head on the wall for 12 years, trying to make something happen that just wasn't in the cards for me. And I don't see that as a personal failure, because my journey was never about what's going on around me. It was only about what goes on within me. And one of those hard truths we don't like to look at is that when things are super comfortable and super easy and flow, you really don't grow. I mean, there's really very little personal growth that comes from safety, security, and comfort, and being loved unconditionally. It just doesn't happen. And I have always committed myself to getting to the truth in the fastest way possible, which has really become a lifetime, a lot of frustrating experiences. But is it just me, or is life infinitely more frustrating than it's ever been? Or am I just increasingly unable to tolerate normal frustration. But as I said in this video, I've just come to this wall where I cannot do survival anymore. I can't physically do it, I can't mentally do it, and I know emotionally I just don't want to do it. And I have everything I need, and I can't carry it with me anymore. I've learned all the skills, but I don't have the strength to do them anymore. And I've desperately tried to be a part of a community. Emotionally, I just don't fit in with everybody else. And so I think that we're in this pivot point. And like I just said with the dogs, man, it just feels like every other week there is another cry wolf or real threat being issued. And even as I record this, I just got off the looking at the latest. Supply chain is going to break in the next 2 weeks because middle of June is going to be an exercise in the air, and then it's all going to go boom. And how many times have we heard that? How many times have we done one last grocery run? I can't do it anymore. I just can't. And when I looked at all my old videos that I made last summer and that last push for a grid down situation, I had some really fascinating aha moments through that. One, as I'm watching them, they really weren't about survival. They were about the mental and emotional journey and how just survival wasn't enough. But I also got a very clear window into the reality that physically I just can't do it. I mean, I was faking it last summer and I had to quit doing the videos and I had to quit the process because I had myself so freaked out that I was falling apart because that constant push, that constant adrenaline, it makes you crash. And it was such a window and a reality check that were the grid to go down, I am screwed because number one, I physically can't do it. And two, I can't get along with anybody. I am the problem. In the group, I am the problem. I am the one that will have to leave. And these just aren't the stories that we tell ourselves when we're planning and we're thinking and we're preparing. And then the reality is, oh crap, right? And so I feel extremely blessed, and I am not at all upset about anything that's ever happened to me because I truly have done my work. I started when I was 12. Going into the library at the University of Houston and pulling out books, asking that question that's been pushing at me forever. What is the truth? And I always thought it was to save the world. I thought if I discovered the truth, everything would change. And what I've learned, nobody really wants it, and the best we can hope for is slow, incremental revelation of truth. But the really big, hardcore truths, they're brutal. And I've been struggling for 6 years, being super pissed off, full rage and fury about the last level that I have stepped into. And it's really just been since this last winter that I'm finally starting to make some peace with it, just in time for the world to end again. So I have no idea what's coming. I just know that as we are moving into the version of the world that I have spent over a decade preparing for and to survive through, I can't. I was ready, but I can't do it. And that was really what came through on those videos, is there's so much more to all of this that's beyond survival. And probably the better skill set that I have is how to stay sane through it and how to find the sacredness to it, how to find the spiritual for you that makes sense. And, I keep trying all this different stuff, but the reality is that technically I'm still screwed. Physically, I'm exhausted all the time. And now I'm in pollen season, which is apparently what wiped me out last year. And just doing the best I can. And it's so hard for me having so much going on within me all the time that's huge. And having this little tiny window of energy and capacity and limitation to get any of that stuff out. So This has been a very transformative year for me, a very aha moment. I moved into my 6th decade. Horror show, right? I can't even believe I'm this old. And what I really learned is we never stop learning. And just because we plan, it doesn't mean we're going to be prepared for everything. And just because we want something, maybe our spirit wants something better and more for us. And I've just never been able to figure out how anybody who has everything that's perfect ever really grows or learns as a person. So I know it's really hard to watch me like thrash around and struggle and stuff like that, but it's hard to do it and it's hard to be it. But I really don't know how else to experience this world except with a lot of experience that's pushing me towards the only thing I ever cared about. And that was to answer the question, what is the truth? And as far as I've gotten onto that path, I've also come to understand I will never complete it, and nobody in this world will. Now, I could BS you till the cows came home, and I could charge you money for it, but I never do. And that's what I've learned, is that real truth and real messengers, we like to crucify, we persecute, we condemn, we censor, because at our core, most of us don't want the truth. And in everything that I've done over the course of 5 decades now, the only 2 things that I have carried with me every single moment, that one question, what is the truth? And then journaling about anything and everything. And so as I move forward, I'm trying, to really focus on what is my one thing. And I thought my one thing was to tell you what the truth was, but I find I can't do it because if I even get this close, I just get shut down. I get argued with, I get defended against, I get explained why I'm not right. And I don't want to yell. Like, I have no interest in defending or explaining what is real for me because I don't know. Maybe it will be different tomorrow. But I do know that that journey is the only one I want to take and the only consistent process for me to survive all this insanity, all the craziness, all the digital deception has been for me to handwrite in a journal. And that's the real gift, I think, is not what is the truth, but really how to get there and why it's valuable. And so, I started with season 2 of the Storm Stories, but I actually took a day off from, moving my stuff, which is apparently my full-time job, and really allowed myself to kind of relax and imagine what that universe would be like. And it's the most fun I've had in a very long time. But it also became really intricate and complex. And so I'm going to actually pull season 2, episode 1. And if I ever get to it, I'm going to redo it the way I really want to do it and not just push something out through the fatigue, through the frustration, through the limitation, and then just keep hanging out with you here in this Beyond Survival series and then at the podcast at Substack, where I'm really speaking to those of us who, like me, are wired for danger, because I think that might be why I'm more frustrated than normal, is there's so much pressure in the ethers and in the environment and in the communities online and individually, this pressure, and it just sets off the part of me that wants to fix it, that wants to fight, that wants to be part of the solution. And it's not going to happen. That is not what this period of time is all about. And so I love those of us who are wired for danger, and I've been exploring it for the last year, and it's really starting to coalesce for me, and that is really going to be, where my heart is talking to those of us. But anybody can listen, and we're all having nervous system crush at this moment. It's just that some of us have a way shorter fuse than others. Not right or wrong, just the way it is. And with that, this is my check-in video. And it is also, we'll see what happens, because things are moving at an infinitely slower pace for me than I would ever hope for or imagine. But I'm trying to make peace with that. I'm trying to stay sane. And I'm trying to really focus on the one thing or the two things that I know are true for me. That I had a singular purpose in this world and I feel good about my process within it. And the how and the why of it are probably the more important pieces to share and not what I found, which is really hard for me because I want to tell you, but nobody's ready to listen because it's horrible. And if it wasn't horrible, then you could pay me a lot of money, but that's never going to happen because it's horrible. The truth sucks, at least to a place. And then on the other side of it, it gets better. It's just taken me a really long time to get on the other side of it because this is a journey and it does not get completed in one lifetime. And we don't all get what we want. And so we have to answer that question for ourselves. What happens when we can't have the life we want in this body, in this world? Then what do we do? And that is the question I have to ask. I have to answer. And I have to deal with. So deep breath, my friends. I will go check on them now. And I will see you next time.